Hi, my name is MK. I'm the founder of Filipino Home-Based Moms or FH Moms. What we do is we help Filipino mothers inside and outside the Philippines to get an online job, and now we are expanding to helping more Filipino mothers without access to the internet by giving them home-based livelihood opportunities.
Before kasi kami na nag-home-based job, parang living paycheck to paycheck kami. Sahod niya, oy, happy na agad yan, yung matitira. Pero nung nag-home-based na kami, doon nakapag-ipon na kami. Nakapag-church wedding kami, tapos nagkaroon na kami ng savings, nagkaroon na rin kami ng investments, tsaka insurance, nakapag-bili na rin kami ng house.
Dito kasi sa pag nagtrabaho kami sa bahay, mas maraming time na sa kids, sa kanya. Kaya, ayun. Hanggang ngayon, masaya pa rin ako lang sa pag-online yun.
Since sobrang hirap, importante ko na talaga yung talag-talag ng job, na-experience ko na rin yung discrimination sa work. Until October 2018, I was invited to be an inspirational speaker, and you were one of them. So yun, na-meet kita. And then doon ako natigil, mami. Doon na talaga doon na ako pinasok talaga yung pag-work. You gave me hope. I remember the experience ko sa isang company na discriminate ko. I got projects, I got freelance job, naging ambassador sa isang company. So those are some things na natutunan ko sa office.
Nag-join ako ng FH Moms last 2017, and that was the first year na nag-transition ako from corporate to working from home. So, nakita ko to sa Facebook as a mommy community for, like freelancers. So, that's why I joined. For me, FH Moms is really like a blessing. The group or this community made me realize my calling as a teacher. It's an honor to be part of this group, to impart what I know, and help other mothers out there as part of the goal of FH Moms. So, go for it.
In my job, there are many tasks. There are so many things that needs to be done in front of the computer. There's a lot of forms, paperwork, and also a lot of research. At the same time, being an event planner, I'm always on the go. And as a new company, it's also challenging whether should I hire an employee, like a regular employee, or should I just get somebody that's on call. Now, this is where FH Moms came in, like God said. So when I hired one of the wonderful FH Mom members with the name of Katie, I was able to communicate to her what I envisioned my business to be, and she helped me to create a very positive branding of my business. So I would say having FH Moms as a support system for my business has been the best decision that I have ever made.
Hello, good evening everyone. Mommy Jackie again here, and I'm happy to have you back dito sa ating free live webinar. Okay, so I'm not so sure if it's your first time again to watch a live webinar from FH Moms. If you're watching and it's your first time, do indicate it in the comments down below. So just tell me where you're watching this video from. This is the third part in our free webinar series on mainly pronunciation, or actually this is part of the accent training that we have for Customer Service 101. So our paid program, training program for customer service would be Customer Service 101. And part of the lessons that we have here, it's actually just part of the first week of lessons on a module about you, okay, would be the accent training, and part of the accent training would be pronunciation. So again, this is part of our week 1 training module in the paid program. So that's about you. It deals mostly with things you need to improve on with yourself, particularly communication skills. So that involves grammar. You also have your accent training, Of course, you have to understand communication in general, and then of course you also have listening. At the end of the day, your goal is to be conversational and effortless when you talk to customers. Okay. Now, before we proceed with the exercises, okay, that's my promise. This for this free webinar, we'll discuss a few things about accent again. Okay, so for tonight, our lessons would be focused more on what we call tipping point exercises. These are, I would rather say, these are vocal exercises that you can employ, especially if you're having a hard time. There would be times, and I think I'm not so sure for those who are currently working as a CSR if you've actually experienced this. But I remember when I started out before, an 8-hour shift of speaking in English sometimes can really tire your articulators and your jaw. So I didn't really know much about these tipping point exercises back then. But of course, when I was a trainer, I learned about these things. And I think it makes sense that I share some of it. It's not everything. There are some exercises that require you to stand up or to sit up. For example, I did not include these exercises and other vocal exercises because we have limited time, of course. But hopefully, still, you will be able to learn something from me. Now, last Monday, we discussed vowel sounds, and Wednesday, we focused on consonant sounds. Now, before again we proceed with the rest of the topics, I'll review again first what is accent and what are the main components that compose accent, okay? So as I've mentioned, one of the topics that we have in Customer Service 101 is accent. And accent, as they say, is a distinct way of speaking for a particular group or maybe a regional, it can be a regional accent, right? And it is a combination of three main components, which is intonation, pronunciation, and liaison. Intonation would be more of like, as they say, speech music. This is not something very foreign to us, I would believe. We've learned this back in grade school and in high schools, particularly in terms of how we're going to greet, let's say, our teachers, right? I've used this example several times, but that's very true. I believe when you were still young, right? Your teachers would ask you to greet them as "Good morning, teacher," and it follows that when you do that, you use that pattern for everything that you say. So, for example, you say, "Hello, my name is Jackie." So there's like a sing-songy intonation that you use. So in the accent training part, we talk about the different ways of how you apply intonation when you speak. Again, the goal is for you to sound effortless, to sound natural, and to sound conversational. So I think you need to, if you have that, what we call sing-songy intonation, it to a certain point, your customers, or let's say whoever you're talking to, might not really listen to what you're saying anymore, but instead they will be listening to how you're saying things. Like if you still have that sing-songy intonation, okay? Now, and then the next part would be, I'll skip the second one, okay? Since that's our topic for this series. The next one would be liaisons. Liaisons is basically word connection. And this is, I would believe, a very, I would say, foreign idea for us Filipinos because we were not really trained to employ or to use liaisons when we speak in English. In fact, the way we were trained to read words, we were trained to read words word per word, syllable by syllable, right? I remember back then, every time you need to read a word in English, people say that there must be a reason why you have that letter in the word. So we were trained to read every letter in a word, right? But in this case, for you to sound, I would say, more of a standard American English accent, for example, you have to apply liaisons and start connecting some words together and dropping off some sounds along the way, okay? So we've also talked about, for the free webinar series, we've talked about pronunciation, and I've said that it's mainly involving the vowel and the consonant sounds. There are distinct differences and rules that apply to a standard American English. And I believe that if you start practicing these rules, at some point you will be improving. I'm very sure of that. It raises your awareness that you need to improve on something. Okay, so I hope that in this series of free webinars, you will somehow get something from me. Okay, and well, the goal really is for you to start. Aside from learning, okay, I'd like you to start gaining confidence so that finally you can possibly apply for that customer service representative position that you're eyeing for. Most of the time, if you apply for a customer service job, you will be required to submit a recording, or you will have a, I would say, a phone interview where you are expected to, I would say, display, right? Display your skills in terms of speaking. So anyway, let me see. Let's proceed. I hope you can see my screen because I know my video is bigger than the slide. I'm gonna be requesting them to make the screen bigger. Anyway, I hope you're going to learn from me today, and let's proceed some more. Okay, I added a few more slides about accent, and part of learning about accent, you have to also remember that aside from accent part, you also have to be aware of grammar and vocabulary. Okay, now grammar was discussed by Mommy Heidi. She's our trainer for ESL. I forgot the title of the exact title of her course, but she's the one handling the training for our English for second language for ESL teachers. So we also have grammar rules in our customer service 101, but of course we didn't want to have repetitive topics from last week and this week, so we separated them. And then of course, I think it's really helpful if you have a wide vocabulary. You're not running out of words, okay, to say. So it goes hand in hand that you know the words and you also know how to sound, right? So grammar and vocabulary, as they say, is the systematic and structured part of language. It's actually the letter of the language, whereas accent is more of the spirit of the language. It's free form, it's intuitive and creative. And that means that as you learn these rules, or you have learned probably from the last two webinars, I hope that you're practicing and grab your phone. You can grab your phone and record yourself, listen to yourself, so that you can experiment on different ways of how you can play around these rules. Again, your end goal would be to sound conversational and to sound relaxed, sound natural, effortless. So you can judge it by listening to yourself. I believe we are the best critics of ourselves. So you can always go back to your recording. And I think it's something that we're not really doing, I believe. So you can go ahead and, you have a lot of features in your phone that you might as well, especially during this time of the new normal, that maybe some of you are still at home, make use of your devices. In fact, if you remember from last Wednesday's discussion, you can even have a video recording, a selfie recording of yourself, selfie video recording, if there's such a term, right? So that you can also check out, for example, how you open your mouth. If you remember it correctly, last Wednesday we talked about the difference in how you open your mouth dictates how clear your consonant sounds are, and even your vowel sounds too. How you open your mouth will somehow influence, okay, the sounds that will come out of your mouth. So, yeah, I do think I would say that the American accent or the standard American English is more of like music. You have to get the feel of it and be relaxed, okay? So maybe some of you are asking, why do we need an American accent? Well, I would say not really like a very, I would say not necessarily an American accent, but as I would say a neutral accent, okay? Something that's understandable for everyone across the US. But not only that, because you have to remember that as a freelancer or as a work from home professional, you have to cater with mostly foreigners, right? And the thing is, like what we've talked about in customer service, we said that it's us who would have to do the adjusting part and not our customers. So in this case, your customers speak in a certain manner, whether they'd be Americans, British, or Australians, and somehow we have to adapt to how they speak. Now, whether it be that your clients or your customers are British or Australians, I think that a standard neutral accent will be acceptable for them. And your goal is for them to understand you. But keep in mind that as you learn to speak with this accent, you also need to familiarize your ears, I would say, to be specific. You need to train your ears to listen to this accent too. Sometimes we're really good with, I would say, learning how to speak in English or with the neutral or the standard American English accent, but we don't really train our ears to listen to them. Now, remember, as a customer service representative or anybody who's involved in customer service, the process is a two-way thing. So you have to be able to listen to your customers, right? And if you're not familiar with their accent, then you will have a hard time understanding what they're saying. If you're having a hard time understanding what they're saying, then you cannot respond to them appropriately, right? It makes sense, okay? What else? Now, I don't think that we Filipinos are really bad in English. In fact, if you compare it to other nationalities, I think we have at par skills. The only opportunity for us is that we were not really trained to speak the American or the standard American English way. For others, they feel like the way we speak, it's more of a non-standard mechanical accent, okay? Again, mainly the difference is that we were trained to read words word per word and syllable by syllable, right? And there are certain sounds in the Filipino English that somehow restrict us to sound good in a way, okay? So for an American, an average American, they may have a hard time understanding our accent, okay? I know it doesn't make sense to us because we understand them, right? But again, your goal is for them to understand you too, okay? With that said, most of the time, even if we're speaking, I don't know if you've seen or you watched something like this. Sometimes a foreigner would, I would say foreigner, it can be like an Asian, any Asian for that matter. They're speaking in English, but an American would question what language are they speaking, right? So for them, they don't really hear you speak in English just because of your accent, even if you're using English words as you speak. Because again, the way you sound for them is foreign, it's strange. To them, it's actually wrong. It's very different. And it's not just about using English words. It's about how you also deliver it. So remember that it's not about what you say alone, but also how you say it, okay? So, I'm sorry, there's a cat passed by, so I'm not really sure if it did something here at the background. Okay. Anyway, so a typical example was in high school and in grade school, there are proper ways to pronounce some English words. Like, for example, as I've mentioned, we were trained to read words word per word, syllable by syllable. Like the word here, emerald, right? So the way we see 3 syllables, right? And you have to read every letter. That means that you read it as emerald, right? But in fact, if you want to sound more, I would say, standard American English, this would come out more of like sounding like 2 words. So emerald, right? And comfortable, because that's how we were trained to read it, should be comfortable. For those who learned about the vowel sounds last Monday, the second letter O in comfortable becomes more of a, the first letter O, and also the second one can also become a schwa, okay? And then this one, instead of family, it should be family, right? Now, for us Filipinos, when somebody says comfortable and emerald or family, for us, it's not really wrong. But for, I would say for Americans, for foreigners, it can sound funny for them. It is, I'd say, very Asian. So they don't really have a distinction normally whether you're Chinese, you're Indian, you're Korean, or you're Filipino. Asian is Asian. So that's why they also associate that we're just one with Chinese, or how Chinese people sound, okay? But regardless of that, the main goal again is for you to sound with a better accent, okay? So anyway, I see that I have some friends who are also watching. Thank you for watching. And I hope you will also learn something from this free webinar. So we've talked about last Monday about vowel sounds, and I'm gonna go through it just quickly because we're done with it. If you haven't watched it, go ahead, and I know it's recorded, so it must be somewhere in the Facebook, in the archives. I don't know where you could find it, but I know it's one of the posts that we have here in Filipino home-based moms, or it's also available on YouTube, so you can go ahead and review that. So we've talked about how vowel sounds are very different from the way we say vowel sounds in the Filipino English language. We normally just have 5 vowel sounds, which is a, e, I, o, u, right? But a alone has several pronunciation, like what we have here. You have the AE sound a, and you have the long A sound a, and the egg A sound, the one with the 2 dots at the upper portion. You have ah, so father, lard, dart. Now, if you have any questions, and tell me if I'm going too fast. But these vowel sound lessons will be found in the webinar last Monday, so you can go ahead and review that. Now, for consonant sounds, we talked about the 2 types of consonant sounds. You have your stop and continuous sound. So you need to first distinguish. If you're having a hard time with any of the consonant sounds, you have to distinguish if the consonant that you're reading or saying will be a stop or continuous sound. So a stop continuous sound, a stop consonant sound is something that you cannot prolong, and you have only 6 letters that has 6 letters that have the stop sound. Okay, so you have your p, b, d, t, d, k, and g. Okay, or your letters p, b, t, d, k, and g. Okay, and then for your continuous sounds, it's basically a sound that can be prolonged at will. So don't be confused with prolonging, of course, the vowel sound. Like in the earlier example or list of a stop sound, you might say that, well, I can't prolong the letter B by saying pa. No. With the letter P, you're actually prolonging the vowel sound that goes with it. It's not really the actual letter P that you're prolonging. Unlike if it's a continuous consonant sound, like the letter F and H and so on, so you can say f, right? I don't know if you can hear the letter F. That's the letter H. S, v, woo. And then you have your x, your y, and z. So it's the consonant sound itself that you can prolong. Now, of course, you can do a combination and have maybe also the vowel sound prolonged. This is something you can play around, especially when you apply intonation as you speak. So like for the example word here, you can actually say it as Mars. Okay, so I don't know why you're going to say it that way, but it just goes to show that you can play around with words. You don't necessarily have to have the same pronunciation all the time. And that's what makes language, I would say, very dynamic and very interesting. And it's also fun, right? Okay, so before we proceed with the exercises, since we're done with reading, I would say reading or learning about consonant and vowel sounds. Again, if you have missed it, you can probably browse earlier posts within the Filipino home-based moms group page, group page or the Facebook page, right? And you can still watch this. I know the previous videos were recorded, okay? So we had vowel sounds last Monday, and Wednesday where we had consonant sounds. So now we'll just go through a little bit about British English versus American English. To be quite honest, among the two, I find it easier to understand or converse with Americans rather than British. Not because of how we speak, but more of the listening part. So remember what I told you earlier, that in as much as you need to learn how to speak with the standard American English accent, okay, you also have to train your ears. Okay, so you need to make sure that if you have, let's say, and if you're going to cater to mostly British clients or British customers, or it also for Australian clients, for example, then you have to somehow be familiar with how they sound. One thing that you can do is maybe subscribe or watch maybe a Netflix series on Australian something, anything about Australian, or basically when the actors or the guests are all Australian, so that you start training your ears. So when I started out being a customer service rep before, I would really listen to American movies and talk shows. Yes, it's movies. Then I know it doesn't make sense that I am listening to them, but yes, you have to listen. You don't just watch with your eyes. You have to watch with your ears. Okay. I know it might sound a bit. I would say. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to adjust my light. I know it sounds a bit weird that I'm saying you have to train your ears, but that's really how it is. If your goal is to understand one another in a better manner, then you have to not just train your articulators, you also have to train your ears. Eventually, you have to train your, I would say, your brain, right? Because you need to have like a mindset when you need to speak to foreigners. You have like an imaginary on and off switch that and I know a lot of people who are working in the BPO industry can relate to this. Like as soon as you enter the premises, like just the door frame, right? It's like you forget everything Filipino and you leave it behind the door, right? And most Americans, I had a colleague before who was really amazed with how we Filipinos behave, right? And as soon as we get out or we leave the premises of the office, we turn on the Filipino mode, so to speak. I hope it made sense to you. Now, anyway, let's talk about a few differences between the British and American English. So there are quite a few differences, okay, and noticeable differences between the British and American English, mainly in the spelling. So spelling is something, it's a mind-boggling realization, but yes, it is true. There are some words that are spelled differently in British English compared to American English. With that said, of course, it makes sense that you also have a difference in the vocabulary and also pronunciation, and there are also some grammar differences. Okay, we won't really have a very in-depth discussion on this part because it's just a free webinar and I think we have limited time, but I hope that you'll still learn. And I think if I strike the curiosity in you, it will give you one idea, and maybe you can also do your own research. There are a lot of videos, web references that you can always go back to and review. Okay, so on the spelling part, let's talk about the spelling part. So these are just some of the differences. So for example, some words that end with an OE and an AE in the British language will have to be an E. So anemia, or not end, it's in the middle, okay, in the middle of a word. So diarrhea that we know of in the British language would have a letter O. Okay, so that's why for encyclopedia, for example, you will see a spelling that has an AE instead of a letter E. So it's a difference between the American and the British language. So you have your two L's versus one L, right? Your S and Z. So Americans would spell it with the letter Z, but British people will have it as a letter S. So that's the reason why sometimes when you enter it and you have, let's say, Grammarly on, or some kind of a spell check or grammar check application built into your, let's say, Microsoft Word or any other document, or what kind of software is that? A typing software, okay? Or maybe a website, or maybe even your phones when you're texting and you have a dictionary on to autocorrect, right? So you have the differences in the spelling, and this might affect it. Okay. Yeah, you can't see the slide. It's very small. I'm sorry. Will, I hope you're still in the background. Can you maybe switch and make my camera smaller and the slide bigger so that the audience can see the slide better? Okay, I hope he can hear me. But anyway, I'll wait for him to work on that. But as we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and go through the rest of the differences. Is it really very small? Yes, it is small. Will help. Wait, let me see if I can get in touch with him via chat. We need. Okay, one moment. That's the thing about going live. We need the slide bigger, please. Okay, so hopefully he got the message. Anyway, let's proceed. So another thing, so you have your, and that's the reason why when you type it in, sometimes your enroll can be either with two L's or one L. So you have to check what is the setting of your dictionary. So if it's set into British English, it will follow a 1L spelling. But if it's American English, it will follow two L's, okay? And so on and so forth. So there are several differences in the spelling when it comes to British versus American English. You also have this one. So even in the language, there are these are images that you can find of Google, so you can go ahead and also look for some more examples. So there are certain words that are not used in the US, for example, right? Like hat is not really used as hat, you use bonnet, and so on and so forth. So pajamas is pajamas. Exam versus test, okay? So you have break time versus recess. So I think this is I would say, especially if you're going to cater to mostly British people or the UK client. And in our customer service 101, we talk about how you could somehow differentiate these types of customers, so you would know which ones you would really want to cater to. Your preference in terms of your working hours will dictate also if you would probably go for a British client or American client or Australian client. So we discussed that also during the customer service 101 class. I'm really sorry. I think he's not able to see the comment. I hope you can still read the slide. I know it's kind of small. I don't know how to make it bigger. I don't have control. I'm sorry. Okay, so here are some more examples. So instead of, let's say, motorcycle, they use motorbike, right? And I think this might be, I would say, something that might be a disconnect, especially if you're talking to a British client. They might be saying some words that may mean something different to us compared to what we know, okay? So for example, if they say, let me see, if they say pharmacy, they usually call it as chemists. Okay, I'm a chemist by profession, by the way, but I never really got to practice it. So for example, also you have here rubbish versus garbage or trash, right? So these are just some of the examples, okay? We have more. So you have here in terms of work, right? If you're applying for work, or maybe something like seasonal or some other words that are associated with some jobs, right? These are also some words that you need to be familiar with, okay? And there you go. Now, in terms of pronunciation, we talked about in the American English, we talked about the AE sound, and of course, your egg A sound and your O, right? Their AE sound is normally pronounced with an egg A. So you have to change the way we say something. Like, for example, instead of saying mat, you have to say mot, right? So you have to switch from an AE sound, you have to change it into an egg A. So instead of mat, you say mat, right? And instead of an egg A, let's say for block, you say block. So it becomes an O. So black. So if it's black, you say block. No, sorry. If it's black, you say block. And then if you say block, you say block. Did I make sense? So again, if it's in American language, you say the color black. That's an AE sound. You pronounce that with a British English as block, right? So it's an egg A sound. But for the egg A American English block, like as in BLOCK, in the British language, you read it as block, an O, block. Are we good? And then you have your letter R. So in this case, you don't usually pronounce the letter R sound. So instead of bird, heart, far, you say bet. Instead of bird, bud, hot. So heart becomes hot. Far becomes fa. So they don't really pronounce the R sound, okay? And then you have your do becomes Jew. And then you have your Tuesday, okay, becomes it's a more, I would say, a more pronounced J sound, okay? And then your what becomes what. It doesn't have that H sound or a very audible H sound, okay? I hope you can still see the slide even if it's not as big. And then there. So these are just examples. So spot in American English becomes sport. So almost bordering the word sport, right? And then you have fast in American English becomes fast. Better, remember the soft D that we talked about? One of the 4 ways to pronounce the letter D. Better becomes better. And then your R, again, can be pronounced everywhere, but in the British language, it is sometimes silent. So I heart you, right, becomes I heart you. And then privacy, the AI or the long I sound becomes I, more of a short I sound. So privacy becomes privacy. I hope that makes sense somehow. So remember, you have to train your ears. And I know relatively in my own experience, I find it harder to understand British people. So only because I think I'm more exposed to American speakers as well. So, but it really depends. If you're going to focus more on British clients, I'd really suggest that you expose yourself with a lot of British media. Now, in terms of intonation, this would be more on the stress or where they stress on certain words. There are differences. Like, for example, for Americans and British, they have a different way of pronouncing some words. Like instead of saying address, it can be address for the case of Americans, for example, and for British, they stress on the last syllable, address. So there's a difference in the way they speak the words itself, okay? So whether they put the stress on the first syllable or the last syllable. Liaison, liaison. Renaissance, renaissance. Okay, so there's a very big difference. And in this case, another example for New Orleans, or you actually pronounce as sometimes for the southerner, you call it New Orleans, right? And in this case, New Orleans. So I would say the pronunciation part is also affected whether you're speaking to an American or a British client or customer, okay? Now, this is the main topic supposedly, but I know we've done almost past 30 minutes. And I hope that somehow these exercises I will be sharing with you will somehow give you, I would say, better vocal qualities as well. I think these are very helpful. It's not a complete list yet. I'm sharing you a few because I think just with these few exercises that will be a big help to you already, okay? So for the most part, I'll read first the description and the instructions, and then I'll hopefully be able to show you how it's supposed to be done. And I hope you can do this with me. Although I cannot see if you're doing the exercises, I hope that these would be something you're going to be doing as well. So I hope you're going to learn from it. Okay, so anyway, let's talk about the first exercise. The first exercise is what we call fish kiss. Okay, so fish kiss. Now, this exercise reduces vocal tightness by creating a full round sound, and it also strengthens the lips and gives a forward focus into the mouthpiece and the customer. So in this case, it helps you produce, I would say, full, especially if you have to remember, part of, I would say, part of the reason why you're mispronouncing words or mispronouncing or pronouncing words the right way is the way you open your mouth, right? So if you open your mouth and it's not, I would say it's too tensed, then you might have a hard time producing the right sound. So in this case, let's follow the step-by-step procedure. So it says, first and foremost, you have to relax your jaw, okay? Then open your mouth. I can't, as I'm reading it, I can't do it yet. So we'll have to do it later on, okay? I'll demonstrate how it's done. And then it says here, step 2 is you open your mouth with the width of 2 fingers. So something like this, okay? So you can measure it and use your 2 fingers. And then focus the lips forward and breathe in. And on the exhale, you can say, ooh, way. Okay, so again, relax your jaw, open your mouth with the width of 2 fingers. I know some of you might be laughing at what I'm doing, but this is, trust me, going to help you. So, and then focus your lips forward. It's like, you know how fish would actually look like? Fish kiss is normally like that, like you have a pout, right? But in this case, it has to be open, okay? Now, after you open it and focus your lips forward, breathe in. And on the exhale, you have to say, ooh, way. Ooh, way. Ooh, way. Okay, I know I look funny, but I hope that can help you. You can do this, let's say, especially if you're already involved in a customer service role, or even before you do that, or before you have a speaking engagement, or maybe an interview with a client, so that your jaw is actually relaxed and your lips are also relaxed. Again, remember that tightness in your jaw and even in your lips may refrain you from producing full round sounds, especially the round sounds. Let's say the rounded vowels, that is something that would really require you to have, I would say, round formation of your lips, right? Okay, let's proceed. So now this part, deep breathing does not only apply for singers. I believe that if you will ever be involved in a job where you're needed to speak, I would say for 8 hours. So this goes, let's say, even for teachers. So who else speaks the 8 hours? Teachers, trainers, customer service representatives, outbound callers, anyone who uses their voice mainly as an investment or on the job. I believe that this would also be very helpful for you. And it says here that proper breath or proper breathing ensures that we receive enough oxygen to maintain our energy throughout the day, which makes sense, right? If you don't breathe, I think it will, you know where you're going to head, right? So it impacts also your pace and your volume of speech. In fact, if you, let's say that you're running, because that impacts the way you receive oxygen, it also affects your pace and the volume of your speech, right? Now, of course, you don't have to run just to test if it really impacts your pace and your volume, but you can try it if you want to, okay? Now, deep breathing provides relaxed listening and relaxed listening and supports clearly understood language, okay? Now, for this part, start with your lips slightly open and the jaw relaxed, like that, okay? And then take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale through the mouth. Now, and one of the indications that you're doing it the wrong way is if you end up raising your shoulders, okay? Now, to do this, you have to basically put your, I would say, the air supply into your diaphragm, okay? Trust me, this is something really, really helpful. Not just again for singers, okay, but also if you're speaking the whole time, it will also refrain you from having sore throat. Based on experience, it doesn't wear your throat as much as maybe before. Okay, now a helpful tip I can give you. Okay, you can put your, and I don't know if you can see it. This is my hand, but I'm putting it here. Of course, you can't see the way what I'm doing, right? So your diaphragm should inflate as you breathe in and deflate as you exhale. So meaning, you can feel it. It's right just below the chest. You can put your hand on your diaphragm. It's not the tummy part or the navel part. It's a little above that part, right below the chest. Okay, and you can feel the movement somehow as you breathe in air. It's like a balloon, right? It gets inflated, and then as you exhale it gets deflated. Okay, so for some it's like you can imagine yourself also, as you bring in air through your nose, or even sometimes also you can do it from your using your mouth, and then you exhale through the mouth. You can feel your tummy enlarging somehow, and at the end of maybe several attempts, you can feel yeah, you might end up farting because there's too much air. In Tagalog it's kabag, right? So you might experience that, but that would really be helpful. So it's like your regular inhale exhale, except that you're putting the air into your diaphragm. Now, again, the indication that you're doing it wrong is if you're raising your or lifting your shoulders. So you can do it. You can do it 8 counts in, 8 counts out. So you go. Of course, I can do it with you. I have to do it and count by myself. But you can go 1 to 8, 8 to 1. So and then out. So it's like inhale, exhale. Now, it's good if you can use your hands and put it right above. I'm sorry if I can show it to you. I don't know how I can show it to you. I'm sitting down. So, and you can also do this before you go to sleep, just to relax yourself too. On a lying down position, put your hands right just past your chest portion. That's your diaphragm, okay? Or if you have your, let's say, your tummy, right? It's in the upper portion of your tummy. Okay, so I hope that will help you. Okay, we're done with the fish kiss, so let's move on this time to what we call the tongue exercises. Now remember, some of the words or some of the sounds that you're producing will have to make use of your tongue, particularly, let's say, your TH sound. So sometimes the reason why you're not pronouncing some words is or some sounds properly is because you're not using your tongue correctly. Now remember, a classic example will be the TH sound, right? The TH sound would always require you to make use of your tongue. So the, right? The. Now, if there's some sense of tension with your tongue, then somehow you will end up mispronouncing that sound. And instead of saying the TH sound, maybe if it's the unvoiced TH sound, you'll end up saying a letter T or a letter S. And if it's a voiced TH sound, you might end up saying the, right? I would say a hard D sound instead of a voiced TH sound. Okay, so let's try this. And I'll go ahead and read the instructions first, and then I'll show you how it's done. Okay, so smile, and then open the mouth to the width of 2 fingers. Okay, so at least like this, right? And then stretch your tongue in and out as far as it will go. Now, this would look a little bit funny as I demonstrate this to you. And I know some of you might end up laughing as you're watching, but that's really how it is. Okay. And then you have to move it from side to side. And you can do this several times to release the stretch. Not only are you going to move it side to side, you're also going to move your tongue in and out your mouth. So you do it like that, and you do it like, you know, your usual stretching in, out. I can't do it as I speak, of course. Okay. Now, just make sure that you keep the tension firm right down to the tip. Okay. Now, because this is stretching somehow, this is a tongue exercise and you're stretching your tongue, you can hold out your tongue as far as possible and touch the first top lip, then the bottom. So it's like up and down this time, right? So I hope you can do this with me. Now, of course, as I do it, we don't have music, right? But as I do it, I hope that you can go along with me. Now, try to just, I would say, count as you do it. You can also do it that way. So you can do it, number one, we do it this way. So smile again. 2 fingers. Move it side to side. And then you have your number 2, in and out. So same, open. I know I look funny, but that's how much I love you guys. Okay, and then the next one would be number 3. You hold out your tongue as far as possible and then touch the first the top of your lip and then bottom. So this is like the up and down this time. And you can do this alternately, right? So now we're doing number 3. Stick your tongue out again as far as possible. Smile first, of course. 2. Now, I know I look funny, but believe me, since you're involving your tongue, again, especially if you have I would say, an opportunity with saying, let's say, the TH sound, the tongue exercise can really be very helpful for you, okay? So this is really how it is. Okay, and then, of course, here's another part of the tongue exercise, number 4. You have to keep the jaw relaxed and the mouth, again, open, 2. And then as you do it, you're actually doing it faster and faster. Okay? So remember, I think the first one is side to side, in and out, and then top to bottom of the lips. And then the next time you have to move the tongue behind the top teeth. So it's at the back. I don't know if you can see it. And then the side of the cheeks. Now, you can do all of these exercises with faster speed. I know it's kind of hard to do this as I'm actually saying the instructions. And it's kind of weird and awkward that it becomes silent as I do it. So you do it side by side. Let's do it in one round. Side by side. Let's go back here. Side by side. And then you go in and out. Top lip, bottom lip. And then you go top teeth at the back, okay? And then bottom, right, left and right of your cheeks, okay? So you go, what's the next one? Sorry. And then you have your, and then behind the top teeth, side, side. Now, you can do this several times. Again, challenge it. Basically, you're like moving your tongue everywhere, right? So as it becomes more relaxed, and you're basically letting go of all the tension that you have in your tongue. Okay? Now, as you do that, right after doing the exercises with your tongue, you can make an L sound as in lily, la 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 la, and then also an L sound as in wall. And then you can practice moving these 2 sounds quickly to give the tongue more spring. The idea is it's very relaxed, such a way that when you need to use your tongue to read certain words, then it's easier for you because your tongue is more relaxed, right? Okay. Now, I hope that will help you. Okay. So, but the idea is, of course, again, as you articulate words clearly, it is better if you can involve your tongue because some of the sounds that will require you actually to move your tongue around, right? So, I don't know if you can see it, that like when you say 30, 30, your tongue is slightly touching the upper teeth, right? Now, if I don't move it because it's too tense, I might end up saying 30, 30. So the TH becomes a letter T, right? So, especially if you're distinguishing between the number 3 and the word tree. 3, tree. And I hope you can see my tongue move as I go for the word 30. Okay, now the next part is what we call the motorboat. Okay, the motorboat is something that you actually do with your babies. Sometimes you play around with the babies, and you have this, I would say, a buzzing combination with your lips, and then you blow it through their tummy, and then it makes them giggle, right? So all you have to do in this case would be to blow through your lips while adding sound. So it's like you're doing the motorboat sound, but using your lips, okay? And you can somehow feel your lips vibrate as you do this exercise, okay? Now, sometimes, if you're having a hard time producing this or doing this exercise, what you can do is give yourself a kickstart by having your finger touch, or you somehow like trigger your lower lip and do like this. Okay? And the motorboat is basically and you can feel some kind of vibration between your lips. So it's like you're making a vibration, or yeah, you're making your two lips vibrate against each other, but in the middle of the two lips, you're releasing air. So I don't know if you can see it, but I hope you understand what I'm doing. Okay. And you can, right after doing this exercise, you will feel that your lips are kind of activated somehow. And remember that consonants are supposed to be clear, right? And part of the reason why you're not possibly producing the right consonant sounds is because you have some tension in your mouth, particularly in your lips, and your lips all the more has a very big part in producing the right sound. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, so are we good? Okay, now this time let's talk about another exercise. This is now the T, S, and Z exercise. Now this exercise eliminates what we call whistling sounds. So if you're somehow guilty of this part, and at the end of the day, you will have clarity and confidence as you see as you say some words that you're probably experiencing whistling sounds. Okay, so again, relax your jaw and mouth, and this time you slowly say T, te, ta. Of course, I'm saying it faster at the moment. And then you say si, say, saw, and then Z, zay, zaw. So it's like you're using the letters T, S, and Z several times, but using different vowel sounds as a combination. So you say T, te, ta, si, say, saw, Z, zay, zaw. Now you can do this several times as exercises. Now, especially, I would suggest, now you might be wondering why and how, or yeah, why would you even do these exercises? Now, what I would suggest is that before, remember last time I told you that one of the things that you can do as an exercise and to help you, improve the way you speak is you can randomly choose any piece of writing. It can be any paragraph, any storybook, any article in English, and you can read it loudly, record yourself. Now, before you probably do it, if you feel that you're, especially if it's causing too much tension in your mouth area, then I would suggest that before you even do it, you can go through these exercises, okay, and just get all of the parts of your articulators more relaxed first before you go into a speaking engagement. But although that would be more of a, I would say, practice for you or exercises for you, okay? And then, of course, especially this one, I really do this, especially if you're kind of sleepy, although sometimes to a certain point it can be very relaxing that you end up being sleepier. But hopefully, the facial massage is an exercise that will help you get blood to the facial muscles to help you again create better sound. Because remember, your face, everything here is still part of the way you speak, right? And it will also support facial expression should you need, let's say, a face-to-face interaction with the customer, or maybe not really a face-to-face, physically face-to-face exercise or interaction, but let's say that you will have a Skype video call with some of your clients, right? Now your facial expression is something that would also impact the way you speak, okay? Now this is very easy to do. Now you can do this even maybe I find it very relaxing actually. So you can do this anytime you need to talk to someone. So all you have to do is lightly tap your finger all over your face. And then from time to time, it says there that you gradually increase the pressure, but you don't beat your face, okay? So you gradually increase the pressure, okay? And maintain a light touch. Make sure it's just a light touch, right? And then you move to the forehead, press up with your eyebrows, and you have to keep your face, the areas of your face still. Massage the cheek muscles, the one above the lips. So you just basically do it like that. It's very easy. Now it gets you relaxed. Sometimes when I'm sleepy, I do this to wake myself up also. So you can also do this, moms. And you can also do this, although sometimes I find it very relaxing to a point that it gets me sleepier. So you'd have to know better if it works for you, of course. Okay? So next one. Okay, now, especially for those of you who are already working as a customer service rep for a voiced account, right? The bubblegum chew can really be very helpful because it gets you, booted up, or I would say it gets you in a ready mode, okay? Now, some of you can do this, like maybe, I know since you're doing it, most of us are working from home. What you can do is as you walk from your bed, I know some of you do this, you go to your shift right after waking up, right? So as you walk from your bed to your workplace area at home, you can do this exercise. Now, this exercise uses all the vocal exercises and is excellent to use where there is no or little time to prepare. Now, when a difficult word or phrase is preceded with this exercise, the word immediately becomes easier to pronounce. It's very easy to do this. Again, your lips should be relaxed and pushed forward as the fish kiss, like that, okay? And then you begin to hum while making a chewing motion. So you're like basically chewing a bubble gum, okay? And then you start chewing on some of the sounds of the letter. And you can go from the letters A all the way to the letter Z. And then you keep the lips focused forward. So it's like A, B. And you can do the sound instead of the letter. Also, you can say ah, ba. So, but usually you can go ahead and try all the sounds. What you want to happen is you become more relaxed. Remember, this exercises or this particular exercise is like a combination of different exercises that can help you, relax everything here. Okay, so again, your lips are relaxed and pushed forward. Just imagine yourself chewing a bubble gum. A, B, and you can do it all the way to letter Z. Okay, so I know I gave you a bunch of exercises as promised, and I hope that you did not forget our lessons last Monday and Wednesday. You put them all together. That's just part of our lessons. Actually, it's just part of the week 1 lessons from Customer Service 101. And that's it. Now, just remember, I always say this, not just for consonant sounds, but for anything, when you're learning or you're improving your language skills, whether it be the accent part or maybe even the grammar and even your vocabulary, conscious effort is really a must, right? When you say conscious effort, it means that gone are the days when you learn something and you're not going to apply it. You have to make sure that every lesson that you learned from me or even from Mommy Heidi from last week, you have to consciously apply it every time that you can, right? It's like every time you need to speak to someone. In fact, if you can go as far as, let's say, in terms of posting, like in social media, some of your clients might end up stalking some of your social media profiles. So you might as well highlight, for example, good grammar skills in your different Facebook posts, maybe a Facebook page, and there. So conscious effort is really something that I would really encourage you to always have in anything that you do moving forward. So every time you speak with a certain, let's say, vowel sound, okay, I have to remember, how do I say these vowel sounds again? And as you do this, as you practice, I'm very sure you will improve. Based on my experience with the last two so far, the previous batch, last month's batch of trainees, and even this month, I've seen a very significant change in the way they speak. And mind you, some of our mommy trainees are actually the ones who are telling us that they're not as confident to talk to their to any foreigner for that matter. In fact, some of them feel that when they need to speak, there's one mom actually who said this, that at a time when she needs to talk to a foreigner, she feels that the only words that she can say would be a yes or a no, which is in this case, because we have an English only policy during our live classes, I take them out of their comfort zones. That's part of the I would say the challenge that we have, but that's really how it is. When you land on a customer service job and you're going to have, let's say, an American, Australian, or a UK client, the thing is you will really be working and speaking English, whether it be with a UK accent or the standard American English, the whole shift. So if it's an 8-hour job, then that means that you have to speak in that manner for 8 hours. So you might as well, get yourself relaxed all the more by employing these exercises. And again, conscious effort, okay? Now, I do believe that for some of you who don't have the job yet that you're eyeing for, it takes, I would say, a lot of conscious effort and practice for you to start improving the way you speak. The first thing I think that you need to do is first know where you need to work on. And you can only know that just like how a doctor would normally do it. They do diagnosis first through some tests, right? So your tests would be more of recording yourself, right? You can look up any piece of writing. It can even be a poem, it can be a story, it can be a news article, anything in English, okay? And then again, get your phone, record yourself, listen to yourself, and I'm very sure you would know if you sound good enough or if you sound awkward. If you sound awkward, then you can do the same recording over and over again. Now, maybe before you do the next recording, you can review some of our lessons and then start, one by one word at a time. You work on this, and then maybe, after several times, I'm very sure you will improve the way you speak. Now, again, at the end of the day, your goal is to be conversational and for you to sound natural. Okay, so make sure that you're not just developing that certain slang or twang sound to how you're saying words. You want your customers to understand you. That's the end goal. So make sure that you work on that. And you can only do that if you're more relaxed, okay? Now, one of the things that normally some would also ask from me is, how do you make it easier to talk to, let's say, foreigners, right? Well, for one, when you talk to foreigners, you don't think of yourself as someone who doesn't know how to speak with them, okay? In fact, you treat them like other people, like fellow Filipinos too, right? Now, maybe the only difference would be like, for example, if you're talking to an American, then somehow, because especially if it's on the job, right? Then you have to think American too. Meaning, normally what happens is when you hear a question in English, you translate that in Filipino, right? And then when you process that question in Filipino, you think of an answer in Filipino, and then you translate that into English. I mean, the response, right? So that process takes a longer time. And that's the reason why sometimes when you're talking to a foreigner, they find it offensive that it takes you forever to respond to their question. When they're expecting you that if they ask you something, you can answer right away. So I would say that you can think of yourself as having like an English only mode, like the how your phones are. You put it on certain mode and it behaves that way and forgets about the other mode, right? Now, if you need to make use of your Filipino mode because you're in your usual, maybe the interaction with your family or your friends, then you turn that on and then switch back on to the English mode. And when you switch back on to the English mode, that means that the way you speak, the way you think, the way you process everything should be the way your clients think and speak, right? Okay, and that's the reason why part of the lessons also would be to, familiarize yourself with your customers too. So we talk about a little bit about culture, geography, and I would say just the language part as well, and even time zones of the different clients or potential clients that you might encounter as you work from home. Okay, so with that said, I hope that you learned a lot tonight. Um, I'm going to open the floor for some questions. Should you have any question, feel free to post it on the page or wherever you're watching. I know this video can be is available in the Filipino home-based moms page and also Mommy MK's I think personal, or I don't know if it's a personal page or a Facebook page. It's also available on YouTube. So I'm going to be waiting for a feedback from Will if there are any questions. I know they're posting it in the StreamYard app. So if you have any questions, maybe, do you have any questions? On a regular basis, I don't really speak this way. I mean, every day at home, I don't really have to speak this way. But if I have to, then I would. So there. Okay. No, you're also quiet for the last three. For the last three webinars, you've all been quiet. But I hope that, well, I know some of you are also busy applying the lessons that you're learning from me. I'm really happy if you're learning from it. I hope that you're really learning from all the lessons we've had so far for the last three series. This is the last, by the way, for this month. The last free webinar that we are hosting, part of the Customer Service 101. I know there are more free webinars for the other trainers. So I hope that you're really learning. And if you are, I hope you can give me thumbs up or maybe a heart reaction. I'm really, I would say, flattered, and I'm blessed that I'm able to share something with you. If you have, let's say, a particular sound that you're struggling with, you can go ahead and Mami, parang ang hirap po pag una. Yes, you have to remember, I don't know how old Mami Joda is. Okay, Mami Joda asked, parang ang hirap daw pag una. Yes, because you have to remember, like, for example, I don't know how old you are, Mami Joda, but when you think about it, if, let's say, like for me, I am 40 years old. If I didn't know anything about this lesson, then that means I've been speaking this a certain manner for 40 years. 40 years would be a lot, right? Now, if you're younger, like if you're in your 20s, then that's, I would say, lesser experience speaking in a certain manner that you'd have to either correct. Remember, as you learn these things, you have to learn, unlearn, and relearn things. Now, in the same manner that some of us, oh, Mami Joda, you're 34. So that means you have not really, well, I would say still 34 years of speaking, right? And you have been speaking in a certain manner for 34 years. So all of a sudden, after this lesson, you're asked to say, okay, there are more ways to say the letter A. So every time you see the letter A and you read a letter A word, it's like you need to double check, okay, does this have an A sound, an AE sound, an egg A sound? But I think it's just the first part, okay? If you're doing it all the time because you're practicing, I think over a period of time, over several times of, I would say, practice, you will improve the way you sound to a point where you don't necessarily have to have a script. You don't necessarily have to read something. You just, words just come out of your mouth. And, you know, you have to be forgiving about yourself too. I mean, sometimes I also have slips, pronunciation slips, and even grammar slips from time to time. You have to also be forgiving about yourself, no? Remember, we are Filipinos at the end of the day. I would say that English is still not our first language. Unless, of course, again, as I've mentioned, if you're more comfortable with the English language to a point where on a daily basis you talk to your family this way, right? But the thing is, even if you talk in English, I think it's still different from the way you talk to American customers, right? Okay. And it doesn't matter. Mommy Michelle says you're a newbie. As long as you're willing to learn, that makes a big difference. When I started out back in 2006 in customer service, I remember back then I thought I had I would say, a relatively perfect pronunciation, right? I felt that I had a good background. After all, I was a chemist by profession. I mean, I took up chemistry and most of our subjects are in English. So I felt like we had a lot of English words, right? Now, I figured that I know the technical way of pronouncing words, but then if you have to communicate with others, then I would also sound technical, right? Because I'm pronouncing words in a technical manner. Now, my goal being that, well, for one, I'm not discussing anything chemistry, something with the customers, right? Because the account wasn't really a chemistry account. It was a telecoms company. That was the first account I've had. So I didn't really need to use chemistry or chemical words during the job, right? So there you go. But I'm very sure you have. That's why I told you need to have conscious effort. Really, on the first part, you might struggle because you're starting to unlearn a few things. You're trying to take away the ways or your usual practices, right? Like, for example, a typical example would be like the way you open your mouth. If you're the shy type, and you know, as Filipinos, we have this Maria Clara way of saying things, right? People, especially for moms or female, right? For female people or for women in general, we're kind of expected to be, as Filipinos, to be, you know, timid. We don't open our mouth too much. Now, not opening your mouth may mean you're gonna be producing a different sound, right? So remember, we showed you the last time that, you know, not opening your mouth wide enough may produce the Filipino English A instead of the AE sound when you need to say the AE sound. So instead of saying mat, because mat is like this, Filipino way of saying but mat. So the way I open my mouth dictates the way I sound. So now it takes a lot of conscious effort, really. That I would suggest that so that you won't feel awkward about it. Maybe you can set a time for yourself, maybe about, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours, just to have a practice. Now, if you have your kids with you, you can go ahead and have a practice session with your kids as well. You know, it's funny, but yeah, it's true. Most of your kids are actually fast in terms of learning new skills like this. Another thing is, I would say the adjustment on your end would be the fact that you are, some would say that moms or motherhood got the best of us too. Some of you had to end up staying at home, you know, being a full-time stay-at-home mom, right? And, you know, when you're a stay-at-home mom, sometimes you have this, you know, a world of your own. You don't really get to talk to someone. So whatever lessons that you've probably, English lessons that you've had back in grade school and high school, they might have been thrown out of the window too. So you might have forgotten also those, you know, grammar rules. Now, of course, if you're really serious about landing a work from home and if you're eyeing for foreign clients, then you have to really start working on it. It's not impossible. right? I would still always say that it boils down to your will and how badly you want it. Now, I don't think, we're kind of fortunate nowadays that we have this kind of opportunity. When my son was like about 3 or 4 years old, I think, I didn't really have this kind of opportunity before. Okay. Okay. I lose my, okay, your lose should be LOSE. Okay. Not LOOSE. Remember, there's a difference between loose as LOOSE versus LOSE. And there's also a difference between loss, LOSS. But here we go. So I lose my American accent whenever I feel nervous during a presentation or a client interview. What can you advise? Okay. Well, for one, I would suggest that offline, you have to have several practice. You have to make sure that you've exercised. You can employ the exercises we talked about tonight before you even go for that interview. You have to come in prepared, I would say. So make sure that you've done all the necessary preparation before you talk to your potential client. Now, another thing is that I for me, it really helps when you have this. Remember what I told you about the English mode and the Filipino mode on, right? Um, when you have to talk to a client or maybe a customer, if you already have a work from home job, I would suggest that you imagine yourself having a Filipino mode and an English mode switch to a point where when you're in the English mode, you will try to forget, okay? You will try to forget Filipino way of speaking. Okay, the Filipino way of speaking. So that goes as well that you need to start thinking in English. You need to start thinking American. So it's like putting yourself in a certain mode where everything about you is American. So it comes out more naturally instead of trying hard. It's like there's a difference between you getting in the picture as a Filipino trying to speak in English, okay, versus I'm not saying you don't have to be proud as a Filipino, okay? You're still a Filipino, but because you are going to face an American client, then you have to put your best foot forward and be like him somehow. Do I make sense? I hope that makes sense. For me, it really helps. Most of the kids learn to speak English by watching Peppa Pig. Yes. My son's first language is English, and mainly that's because of cartoons. His exposure to cartoons, he was able to somehow adapt. Because remember, even us, the accent that we have is based from our exposure too, right? So what we hear from other people when we were younger, that develops into our own accent eventually. Okay? So the more that you expose yourself, you tend to copy whatever you hear. That's why I was telling you earlier that it would also help if your kids are watching cartoons, you can watch cartoons with them. Now, when you watch, you don't just watch with your eyes. The thing is, I guess us adults, normally when we watch something, we only watch with our eyes. Now, this time, you don't just watch with your eyes, you start watching with your ears too. Okay? So, watch with your ears. So, you start training your ears because, as I've said, I believe we are the best critics of ourselves, right? And as the best critics of ourselves, we end up, when you hear yourself, there's something wrong, you're able to correct yourself too. You don't deny your areas of opportunity. You can actually face it. Now, the best way to do it is, make use of your own, recorders and other devices that you can make use of so that you hear yourself. Okay? Now, the more practice, of course, that you have, you will get accustomed to speaking in English. Okay? Now, what else? Mommy, I'm a pharmacy assistant dati, so wala talaga akong alam about work from home. No, you know what? There's nothing wrong with starting from scratch. I think every one of us, even those who have, like in my case, I started out having a corporate job. And when I started out working from home before or freelancing, I did it mostly to take my mind off of reports, meetings, the pressure of my corporate job. So I started out doing that because when I started working, the freelance and work from home industry is not as big yet. So I tried it out before, but at that time there were limited opportunities. And when I was retrenched back in 2018, I ended up having a freelance or a fixed project client. Normally, my work from home opportunities that I'm getting now are just either fixed projects or freelance jobs. I don't really have um, an hourly or a full-time work from home at the moment, and that's my choice. Okay, because I still have a corporate job as a Salesforce effectiveness and training manager for a pharmaceutical company, and my job, of course, is a full-time job. Although that corporate job is now, because of the pandemic, is also a work from home. So I have a lot of things going on, right? So I'm doing this for FH Moms. I'm also doing a corporate work from home. So don't lose hope, Mommy Michelle, right? Mommy Michelle was the one who commented on that one. There's nothing wrong with being a newbie. I think everyone started out being a newbie. It boils down to how badly you want it. It's good that you're part of the FH Moms community, I think. That's a good start. I used to also be just how do you call that? A reader, a silent reader. So you can start with that and, start improving your own skills first. I would also suggest that you start, signing up for different work from home platforms. And then you can start off first. I believe this is my strategy. Okay. I would suggest that first and foremost, you start checking out what are the usual job opportunities that are out there. Now, if you have a skill set either from your corporate job or from your, let's say, your course or your educational background that can help you meet the needs of the customers, then you can go ahead and pursue that. Now, if there's a gap, let's say you know that you're not good with the language part yet, then prepare yourself by learning and acquiring as much as you can right before maybe you finally hit on that apply button. Okay. Now, that's for those who I would say would have a background aligned with other clients, right? Like and I don't believe that you have to. All of you would have to like have an immediate switch, right? Meaning, like if this was what I was doing in the corporate scene, does that mean I would completely take that out and then not use it in my freelance or work from home? Not necessarily true. What I would suggest is you could also have an inventory of your skill sets, right? So you would know what are the usual skills that you could possibly offer to your clients. Like for example, was it Mommy Michelle? If you're a pharmacy assistant, you might be familiar with pharmacy, pharmacy terms and stuff. So maybe a keyword you can look up would be pharmacy or anything that's pharmacy related. You look for jobs that are related to that, and you can see if, okay, would the job description somehow be related to what my previous post before? Because there might be some pharmacy words that you're already familiar with that might be applicable, and your previous work experience as a pharmacy assistant might actually help. Okay. Mommy Mary Elizabeth, my problem is that I ran out of words to say, or I forgot English terms of words whenever I am talking with my foreign client. Well, for one, Mommy Mary Elizabeth, I think it's really exposure that would help you not run out of words. Okay. Another thing is, for me, it really helps when like what I told you earlier, have that English mode only, meaning every time you need to speak it. The thing is, I know that English is our second language. It's a foreign language for us Filipinos. But sometimes the mindset of us limiting ourselves with having English as a second language also gives us a certain, I would say, limitation, meaning our minds are trained to think that, well, I don't know all the words in English. Whereas when you, let's say, have this English only mode, right? You somehow force yourself, I would say. Like when we have our trainings, for example, because we have an English only policy. The thing is, trainees are taken out of their comfort zone so that even if you're having a hard time expressing yourself in English, you're kind of, okay, you're kind of, I would say, being forced to think of a word, the closest word. Now, also you have to, don't be too hard on yourself, okay? Most of the time, some clients are actually nice enough. They would understand if you don't know the exact word, you can describe whatever it is that you're saying. I would also suggest that as a freelancer, one of the skills that probably would, I would say, help us, right, is Google. When I tried teaching English as a second language to Chinese students, so I've tried being an ESL teacher before. I would usually have a Google Translate app, something. Although that's Chinese, Chinese into English. So, but what you can do is have a window right beside you, just a small window, or maybe your phone can be in on your side, right? So that every time you need to stop to talk to someone in English, you have like an emergency dictionary somewhere at the background, that if you're forgetting it, you can go ahead and type it in. Now you have to somehow be able to master that part, because well, moms are really good with multitasking, I believe. And I think we're not going to have a hard time with that part. So you need to also start mastering that. Okay, that's a tip I can give you. I hope that will help you. What else? And I think one of the things also that you have to have as a mindset is that your clients are also people, human beings. They make mistakes too. So if you make mistakes, forgive yourself. Be nice to yourself. It's okay to make mistakes from time to time. Just make sure that you learn from your mistakes, of course. The only problem would be if you know already that you're having a mistake on this part, but you're still committing the same mistake. That's the wrong thing. Okay. So just make sure that you start learning from it, and then maybe moving forward, avoid having the same mistake again. Okay. Are there any other questions? I don't see all of the comments. I'm only watching from the Filipino home-based moms page, so I'm not so sure. I know some of you are watching from Masbate, from Davao, LP's Las Piñas, right? San Pablo, Cavite, Ilocos Norte. Wow. So Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, from the upper north. I'm really happy that you've watched in, and somehow I hope that you've learned a lot. I know that if you put together the lessons from Mommy Haiti and from me, that will really help you. Now, as I've said earlier, even if you've learned so much, but if you don't apply what you have learned, then it's useless. So I hope that you could start setting aside maybe 1 or 2 hours maybe of your time every day. You can even have it together with your kids. If you have young kids, they're really good. I would say, they're like sponges. They make it, I think they can make it easier for you to learn, these things. Aside from the fact that you're giving them a skill that they may not really be able to learn in school, because that's not how we are trained in school anyway. Okay. So there we go. Do you have any comments, questions, suggestions, whatever? Violet reactions? So, I would say be nice to yourself, be forgiving about yourself too. It doesn't give you an excuse, however, to I would say, the thing is, whatever statement or mindsets that we have, it can either make us or break us, right? It can give us a mindset to, break the barriers. It can also give us like limiting beliefs. They call it limiting beliefs, right? Like, for example, when we say that, you have to accept the fact that English is our second language, that can be a limitation, that can also be an advantage to you. So it depends on your perspective as to, what you'll believe. Now, I would say take the best of both worlds, meaning, accept the fact that English for Filipinos would be a second language, meaning that, you have to be, you need to learn to laugh at yourself if need be, right? If you make mistakes along the way, that's okay. However, the other side of it is that even if English is your second language, it doesn't mean that you would always find an excuse to commit mistake. tasks, right? So it means that, you know, you should be up to the challenge, because since English is your second language, that means that you need to put an extra effort into it, okay? Yeah, for me, on a regular basis, I don't really speak this way. When I speak to my family and even in my corporate job, I don't really speak this way. When I was in the call center industry, I was, right, because we were required to. But then when I started, you know, when I landed on a full-time Filipino, how do you say it? A local job, because most of my previous jobs were within the BPO industry. In the BPO industry, I was required to speak in English all the time, right? But in my regular day job, where we talk to Filipino sales force, initially when I started out, I actually adjusted. It was the other way around. Since I was used to speaking in English during trainings, this time I had to shift and make use of Filipino or Tagalog during trainings, because I had a hard time communicating with our sales force, our Filipino sales force at that time. So I had to, you know, to go back to my default when it comes to training. So from time to time, I have to turn on the Filipino mode, the Taglish mode. It really boils down, I think, to who you're talking to or who are your customers. So remember the basic principle of customer service, that we do the adjusting part and not the customers. Okay? So yes, customers are always right, but of course, we can still make it, you know, we can make the most out of the customer's experience with us by, you know, trying to make the most out of whatever we have. Okay? Now, what else? Do you have any other questions? I don't see all the questions because I only get to see the Facebook page. I think there might be, some of you might have questions on YouTube or the other page of, I think the group. I think we're also being broadcasted in the group page, in Mommy MK's page. So just in case I'm not able to answer any of your questions, I'll try to browse through, you know, the recordings after this one, and then hopefully I'll be able to answer your question. Okay, so I think that's it. Do you have any other questions? We actually have a live class at 8 o'clock scheduled with the September batch right after this one. So I'll just have a photo shoot, a part of a requirement here at FH Moms, and then after that we will have our live class at 8 p.m. So I'm excited to see how our trainees are dressed up, because I asked them to dress up based on their preferred client, because we are on week 2. Week 2 is about customers. So it's all about, you know, taking on the hat or the mindset of our clients. Okay, so thinking the way our clients or customers think. So with that said, I think there are no other questions. It was a good, I know I went beyond the 1 hour, right? But I hope you learned a lot for tonight. And if you have any questions, feel free to post it in the page, and hopefully I'd get to still check them and then answer them as well. Now, again, review the other webinars that we've had last Monday and Wednesday. Also, I would suggest that you review Mommy Heidi's webinar last week. She also had a 3-day webinar, free webinars last week, mostly on grammar. Okay, so she discussed more on the structure and I discussed the spirit of the language. Okay, so I guess that's it for tonight. No other questions, no other comments or violent reactions. I'll see you again, I think, next month for my next series, or I don't know if it's a series or just one webinar, free webinar for next month in the month of October. And that's it for tonight. Have a good evening. It's a good evening. Have a good evening, and God bless you all. Bye.
Hi, my name is MK. I'm the founder of Filipino Home-Based Moms, or FH Moms. What we do is we help Filipino mothers inside and outside the Philippines to get an online job, and now we are expanding to helping more Filipino mothers without access to the internet by giving them home-based livelihood opportunities.
We Before kasi kami na nag-home-based job, parang living paycheck to paycheck kami. Sahod niya, oy, hati na agad yan yung matitira. Or nung nag-home-based na kami, doon nakapag-ipon na kami. Nakapag-church wedding kami. Tapos nagkaroon na kami ng savings. Nagkaroon na rin kami ng investments, tsaka insurance. Nakapag-bili na rin kami ng house.
Dito kasi sa pag nagtrabaho kami sa bahay, mas maraming time na, nga, sa kids, sa kanya. Kaya, ayun. Hanggang ngayon, masaya pa rin naman ako sa pag-online yun.
Since sobrang hirap ko na talaga yung talim ng job, na-experience ko na rin yung discrimination sa work. Until October 2018, I was invited to be an inspirational speaker and you were one of them. So yun, na-meet kita. And then doon ako na-trigger, Mami. Doon na talaga doon na ako pinasok talaga ng mundo ng pag-home-based. You gave me hope. I remember yung experience ko sa isang company na discriminate ko. I got projects, I got freelance job, maging ambassador sa isang company. So those were some things na natutunan ko sa hobbies.
So, nag-join ako ng FH Moms last 2017 and that was the first year na nag-transition ako from corporate to working from home. So, nakita ko to sa Facebook as a mommy community for, like freelancers. So, that's why I joined. For me, FH Moms is really like a blessing. The group or this community made me realize my calling as a teacher. It's an honor to be part of this group, to impart what I know, and help other mothers out there as part of the goal of FH Moms. So, go for it.
In my job, there are many tasks. There are so many things that needs to be done in front of the computer. There's a lot of forms, paperwork, and also a lot of research. At the same time, being an event planner, I'm always on the go. And as a new company, it's also challenging whether should I hire an employee, like a regular employee, or should I just get somebody that's on call. Now, this is where FH Moms came in, like God said. So when I hired one of the wonderful FH Mom members with the name of Katie, I was able to communicate to her what I envisioned my business to be, and she helped me to create a very positive branding of my business. So I would say having FH Moms as a support system for my business has been the best decision that I have ever made.